My name is Emma Carter. I'm 27 years old. And for most of my life, I was the person my family called when something went wrong. Not because I was the oldest, not because I volunteered, but because I always said yes. If someone needed a ride, I showed up. If something broke, I handled it. If plans fell apart, I fixed them. I thought that meant I mattered. For 18 days after I stopped answering my phone, everything went quiet. No one checked on me. No one asked if I was okay. And when my phone finally lit up again, it wasn't because they missed me. It was because something had fallen apart without me there to carry it. And that's when I understood something I should have seen years earlier. I wasn't important to them. I was useful. So this time, I didn't show up. I sent a box instead. And when they opened it, they didn't call me anymore. They turned on each other. In my family, nobody ever sat down and said, "This is your role." It just happened over time. My older brother Jason was always the busy one. Work, stress, deadlines. There was always a reason he couldn't help. My younger sister Lila was the sensitive one. Driving stressed her out. Errands overwhelmed her. Anything inconvenient somehow became too much for her. And me? I became the one who made everything work. If someone needed a ride, they called me. If something needed fixing, they called me. If plans fell apart, everyone looked at me. Not because I offered, because if I didn't do it, nobody else would. And after a while, that stopped feeling like love. It started feeling like assignment. At first, I didn't question it. Honestly, it felt good. Being needed does something to you. It makes you feel valuable, like you matter, like your presence changes things. My mom used to say, "I don't know what we'd do without you." Back then, I thought that was appreciation. Now I know better. Appreciation says thank you. Appreciation notices the effort. Appreciation cares whether it costs you something. Dependence just keeps reaching. And that was the difference. I wasn't being seen. I was being used in a way that sounded flattering enough not to question. It was never one giant thing. It was little things. Constantly. Can you pick up your aunt from the airport? Can you take Lila to her friend's place? Can you stop by the pharmacy? Can you run to the store real quick? Real quick. That phrase never meant quick. It meant, drop what you're doing, rearrange your evening, fix this. No one ever asked if I had plans. No one ever said, only if you can. They just assumed I would. And the worst part is, most of the time, I did. Because after years of being the person who handles things, saying no starts to feel like failing. What finally started bothering me wasn't helping. It was that nobody else had to. Jason lived closer to my parents than I did, 15 minutes closer. Lila had her own car. She just didn't like driving far. My dad could have handled plenty of things himself. My mom could have planned ahead sometimes. But nobody adjusted because they didn't need to. They had me. That's what happens when one person keeps covering the gaps long enough. Everyone else stops noticing there's a gap at all. To them, things just got done. To me, it meant my time was never really mine. The first time it really hit me was on my birthday. It wasn't a huge party, just dinner at my parents' house. Simple, quiet, family. For once, I thought maybe I'd get to just be there. Halfway through dinner, my mom looked at me and said, "Can you go pick up your uncle? He's running late." I laughed. I honestly thought she was kidding. She wasn't. And that was the exact moment something shifted in me, because even on my birthday, I wasn't the person being celebrated. I was still the person solving the problem. And here's the part I hate admitting. I still went. I grabbed my keys, drove out, picked him up, drove back. By the time I sat down again, everyone was already halfway through eating. Nobody said thank you. Nobody said sorry. Nobody even said, "We waited for you." They just kept going. Like I had stepped out of the room to refill water. Like an hour of my time had disappeared, and that was normal. That was the moment I realized something painful. I wasn't helping anymore. I was functioning. After that, I started seeing it everywhere. Every week there was something: groceries, repairs, school pickups, family errands, birthday planning, last-minute emergencies. And every time I thought maybe this is the last one, it never was. Because in their minds, this wasn't me doing extra. It was just what I did. That's how roles harden inside families. Slowly, quietly, until they stop looking like choices. What wore me down wasn't the effort. It was the complete lack of acknowledgement. Not even a simple thank you. It became automatic, expected, invisible. And after a while, you start asking yourself a question you don't want to ask. If I stopped doing all of this, would they miss me? Or would they only miss what I did for them? The breaking point wasn't dramatic. It built over time. Every last-minute request, every rearranged plan, every quiet little sacrifice no one remembered 5 minutes later. Until one day, something small happened. Small enough that if it had happened by itself, it wouldn't have mattered. But it wasn't by itself. It carried everything before it. And something in me finally said, enough. It was a Tuesday. I had just gotten home from work. I was exhausted. And my phone would not stop buzzing. Family group chat. Again. Another request. Another, can you just? I stared at the screen for a long time. And for the first time in years, I didn't reply. I didn't explain. I didn't apologize. I didn't soften it. I just put my phone down. And that silence changed everything. The first day I didn't answer, nothing happened. No second text. No missed calls. No follow-up. Just silence. And that surprised me, because for years my phone had never stayed quiet long. Somebody always needed something. At first, the silence felt wrong, like I had stepped out of a machine that was still supposed to be running. But by that night, I noticed something else. I ate dinner without rushing. I sat on my couch without waiting for the next request. I had one full evening that belonged entirely to me. That felt strange. And good. On day 4, my mom texted, "Are you still coming tomorrow?" That was it. Not, "How are you?" Not, "We haven't heard from you." Not, "Is everything okay?" Just a reminder. A task. A check on whether I was still available. I stared at that message and realized it answered a question I hadn't wanted to ask. If I disappeared for a few days, would anyone actually come looking for me? Apparently not. They'd just check whether I was still useful. By the end of the first week, I started hearing things. Not directly. Through a cousin. Through passive group chat comments. Through little updates that slipped through. Jason forgot to pick someone up. Lila missed an appointment. My dad had to leave work early to deal with something that normally would have landed on me. Small things. But small things stack fast when nobody is actually prepared. That's when I realized how much I had been carrying. Not emotionally. Practically. Then the family group chat shifted. At first, they didn't mention me. That was what made it interesting. The messages were just frustration. Can someone handle this? Why is this last minute? This used to be easier. Used to be. That phrase stuck with me, because what they really meant was, things used to work when Emma handled everything quietly in the background. That's the thing about invisible labor. Nobody notices it while it's happening. They only notice the hole it leaves when it stops. Jason called the next Saturday. Not because he missed me, because something had finally landed on his side. I let it ring. Then he texted, "Hey, Mom said you've been off-grid. You good?" That wording mattered. Not, "I've been thinking about you." Not, "Haven't heard from you in a while." Just, "Mom said." Even his concern came through someone else. And reading that, I had one clear thought. If nothing had fallen on him yet, would he have noticed I was gone at all? I already knew the answer. By the second week, the tone changed. The messages stopped sounding casual. My mom wrote, "We haven't heard from you." Then later, "You know we rely on you, right?" That was the first truly honest sentence anyone had sent me. Not "we miss you," not "we're worried," not "are you okay?" Just, "We rely on you," meaning your absence is causing us problems. And for the first time, reading that didn't make me feel guilty. It made me feel clear. Then they tried something else. They acted like nothing was wrong, like the silence had never happened. "Can you pick up Lila later? Need help with groceries tomorrow. Can you stop by Dad's after work?" No conversation. No acknowledgement. Just straight back to requests. Like if they pressed the old button hard enough, I'd go right back into place. I didn't. And that's when the pressure started building for real. By the middle of week 2, the group chat got messy. Jason saying he was too busy. Lila saying no one ever helps her. My mom trying to keep everyone calm. My dad getting frustrated because things weren't done. And that's when I had a realization I didn't expect. For years, I thought I was keeping my family close. I wasn't. I was keeping them from having to deal with each other. I was the buffer. Without me there, they didn't just have more work. They had more friction. Then my dad called. That was different. My dad didn't do check-ins. He didn't ask emotional questions. He didn't call unless something had become serious for him. So when I saw his name on my screen, I knew this had officially become a problem. I answered. He didn't say hello, he just said, "We need to talk." That word again. Need. Not want. Not can we. Need. There was urgency in it. And underneath that, frustration. Because now my absence wasn't just inconvenient. Now it was affecting him too. He told me to come by the house that night. Like it was already decided. Like I would hear his voice, grab my keys, and fall back into place the way I always had. But this time, I didn't. I stayed home. No explanation, no excuse, no apology, just no. And that changed the temperature completely. Up until then, they still thought this was temporary. After I ignored my dad, it stopped being a misunderstanding. Now, to them, it was defiance. And families like mine don't handle defiance quietly. That was when everything escalated, because the next thing they did wasn't another text. They came to my door. It was Sunday afternoon. I was halfway through laundry when someone knocked. Not politely, not casually. The kind of knock that assumes you're home and assumes you'll answer. I already knew who it was before I looked. My parents. And Jason behind them. Not one of them had come by to check on me when I first went quiet. But now that things were backing up without me, suddenly they all knew where I lived. I didn't invite them in. They came in anyway. That alone told me everything. This wasn't concern. This wasn't a visit. This was control trying to step back into the room. My mom looked around my apartment like she was inspecting it, taking in details, measuring a life she didn't actually know. Then she turned to me and said, "What is going on with you?" No hello. No how are you. Just straight to the problem. And the problem was me not performing my role anymore. The whole thing felt rehearsed. My dad said, "This isn't like you." Jason added, "You've been ignoring everyone." Then my mom followed with, "We're worried about you." But real worry sounds different. Real worry asks questions. Real worry slows down. Real worry doesn't start with blame. This felt like pressure dressed up as concern. They were waiting for a reaction, an explanation, an apology. Anything they could grab onto and use to pull me back into the conversation they wanted. But I didn't give them that. I just said, "I've been busy." That was it. Simple. Neutral. Controlled. And you could feel how much they hated that answer, because they weren't there for information. They were there for compliance. And I wasn't giving it. Then my dad said it. Plain, direct, honest by accident. Things aren't working without you. And the second he said that, everything in me went still. Because there it was. Not we miss you. Not are you okay? Not we care. Just, things aren't working. Meaning the system broke. And you're the one who's supposed to fix it. That was the moment I fully understood. I wasn't part of the family. I was the system holding it together. Then something I didn't expect happened. Jason spoke again. Quieter this time. There's something you should know. That caught me off guard, because Jason never went against my parents. Ever. But before he could continue, my mom cut him off immediately. Not now. Too fast. Too sharp. Too defensive. And that's when I knew there was something else. Something they didn't want me hearing. I looked at Jason, then at my parents, and said, "No. Say it." The room went still. Jason hesitated, looked at my dad, then at my mom. And for the first time in years, he didn't follow their lead. He chose something else. Jason said it carefully. "They've been telling people you're burned out, that you're not really yourself right now." I just looked at him, then at my parents, because that was the part I hadn't seen coming. They weren't only managing my absence inside the family, they were managing it outside the family too. They had already built a version of me that made them look innocent. Not overworked, not used, not done, just unstable enough that nobody would ask harder questions. Jason kept going. "They told people you're overwhelmed, that you needed space, that you've been unreliable." Unreliable. That word hit hard. Because for years they had called me reliable. Now they had flipped it, rewritten it, turned my absence into my flaw. Suddenly I wasn't the daughter who had done too much. I was the one who had changed. That's how fast people rewrite you when the old version stops serving them. And in that moment, everything connected. This was never just about rides, or errands, or being helpful. This was about control. About keeping a system running where I gave everything and they never had to shift. And the second I stepped out of it, they didn't adjust. They replaced the story. Because controlling the narrative was easier than facing the truth. So I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I started preparing. After Jason said everything, I didn't respond the way they expected. No confrontation, no denial, no emotional speech. I just nodded. Because reacting would have helped them. It would have turned this into a conversation, an argument, something they could steer. But silence doesn't give people anything to work with. And for the first time, they didn't know what to do with me. After a few minutes, the room started shifting. My dad leaned back slightly, like he thought things were settling, like this had been a hard conversation, but one he could still steer toward a familiar ending. "We're just trying to help you," he said. Same line, same tone, and I almost smiled. Because he thought this was working. He thought showing up and applying pressure meant the old version of me would come back. But that version was already gone. They kept trying. Concern, guilt, logic. My mom softened her voice. My dad kept trying to sound firm. Jason stayed quiet, and every time they paused, waiting for me to respond, I gave them the same thing. "I understand." That was it. No agreement, no explanation, no promise. Just enough to end the conversation without giving them anything useful. And slowly, you could feel it. They were losing control of the situation. When they finally got up to leave, Jason stayed behind for a second. Just standing there. Like he wanted to say more. That hesitation mattered. Because it told me there was still more I hadn't seen. More he knew. More they had hidden. More history behind all of this than I had fully let myself name. And that was the moment I stopped feeling purely hurt. I started thinking strategically. After they left, I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel relieved either. I felt clear. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't reacting. I wasn't fixing. I wasn't adjusting my life around theirs. I was observing. And once you really start observing patterns, you can't unsee them. That night, I didn't start with old texts. I started with my calendar. Months of entries, doctor appointments, airport pickups, school runs, birthday errands, pharmacy stops, holiday prep, emergency favors. And for the first time, I looked at all of it as one thing instead of separate little tasks. My life wasn't organized around me. It was organized around everybody else. Then I pulled receipts. Gas, groceries, pharmacy runs, last-minute payments, birthday deposits, emergency purchases I was supposed to be paid back for. And that word kept coming back to me. Easier. It was easier if I handled it. Easier if I put it on my card. Easier if I just took care of it. Easier for who? Because it definitely hadn't been easier for me. It had just been quieter. That was the part that really got to me. By the end, they weren't even asking the way they used to. It wasn't, "Can you help?" It was, "You're getting mom at 3, right? You can handle that, can't you? Just put it on your card and we'll figure it out later." Later never came. It never had to. Because they had built a version of me who was always available, always responsible, always expected to absorb the extra weight. And once people get used to you carrying things for them, they stop noticing it's heavy. The idea of the box didn't come all at once. It formed slowly. Because I realized something important. Talking would not work. Explaining would not work. Arguing definitely would not work. They controlled conversations. But facts? Facts don't argue. They sit there and force people to look at them. So I decided I would stop trying to explain. I would show them. I didn't put feelings in that box. I put proof. A printed calendar with my name all over the family's daily functioning. Receipts rubber-banded together. Screenshots from the group chat. A list of everything I had handled in one 12-month stretch. And then I added one last thing. An old spare key to my parents' house. Still on the faded blue keychain my mom had given me years earlier. "Just in case," she had said. I put it in a small envelope and wrote on the front, "You don't need this anymore." That's when the box stopped being documentation. It became a message. I didn't send it immediately. I waited 3 days after they came to my apartment. Then I shipped it. No note, no warning, no explanation. Just one box. Addressed to my parents' house. Because this wasn't meant for one person. It was meant for all of them. I didn't want a conversation. I wanted a moment they couldn't control. Jason told me later what happened. When the box arrived, nobody took it seriously. They thought it was something small. Maybe an apology. Maybe me trying to smooth things over. Maybe me coming back into place. My mom even said, "See? She just needed time." That confidence made what came next hit even harder, because they weren't preparing for truth. They were expecting control to return. When they opened the box, the first thing they saw was paper. Stacks of it. Organized, clean. Labeled by date. No angry notes. No accusations. No dramatic explanations. Just numbers. Time logs. Expenses. Records. Every ride. Every errand. Every cost. Everything I had done. Everything I had covered. And at first, no one said anything. Because facts don't argue. They just wait. Under that were screenshots, messages, requests, patterns, the same phrases over and over. "Can you just... It'll only take a minute. We need you." All lined up side by side across years. And suddenly, what had always looked normal did not look normal anymore. Because when you see something once, it feels small. When you see it 100 times, it feels intentional. At the bottom of the box was one final sheet. No letter, no speech, just a chart. One column, what I handled. Appointments, repairs, rides, pickups, grocery runs, holiday prep, emergency calls. Next to it, who should have handled it? Jason, Lila, Mom, Dad. And beside most of their names, blank space. That was the part that changed the room. Because up until then, they could still tell themselves I was being dramatic. Now they had to look at exactly how much they had quietly handed off and exactly how little they had picked up themselves. Jason saw it first, then Lila, then my parents. And the room shifted instantly, because now they weren't looking at me. They were looking at each other. Who avoided responsibility? Who passed things off? Who relied on me the most? Who did the least? Years of imbalance all in one place. And once people see that kind of truth, they cannot unsee it. It didn't take long. Voices raised, questions turned into accusations. Jason blaming my parents, Lila blaming Jason, my mom trying to calm things down, my dad trying to take control again. But control does not work when everyone sees the truth at the same time, because now there is no one left to quietly carry it for them. And for the first time, I wasn't the one holding that house together. The very last page in the box was the simplest one, just one sentence. For the first time, I let all of you carry what you kept handing to me. That was it. Because that was the truth. I didn't ruin anything. I didn't abandon them. I didn't create a problem. I stepped back. After that day, no one called me. Not my mom, not my dad, not Jason, not Lila. And for the first time, that silence felt different. Not empty, not heavy, not uncomfortable, just quiet, peaceful. Because now they understood. Not perfectly, not deeply, but enough. And sometimes, enough is all you need. Months passed. Life moved forward. On my terms. No constant calls. No last-minute pressure. No expectations I didn't agree to. And my family? They didn't completely fall apart. But they changed. Because once people are forced to face reality, they can't go back to pretending nothing was wrong. And me? I didn't walk away from my family. I walked away from the job they had quietly built around me. That's the difference. I was never asking them to love me perfectly. I was just asking them to stop needing me more than they knew me, and that's the part no one tells you. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is step back. Not to hurt people, not to prove a point, but to finally choose yourself. If this story felt familiar, then you already know what it's like to be the one everyone depends on but no one checks on. Tell me in the comments, are you that person in your family? Or did this story make you realize you might have someone like that in your life?